Cubase 7.5 has updated setup windows, and the setup windows help you customize how Cubase looks. And these are really important if you're working on a lower resolution monitor. For example, up here in my toolbar, you'll notice that Cubase 7.5 has some new features, and those features have displaced some of these other tools a little bit further down the list. And in fact, what I used to be able to see on this low resolution monitor, which right now I have to use for producing these tutorials, which is 1280 by 720, I can't actually see all of the tools. See how Use Cubase, which used to be visible in all of my other courses, is now hidden a bit, and there are some other controls to the right of those controls that I can't see either. So by changing the features that are contained within the toolbar, I can get down to just the tools that I want to use while I'm in this lower resolution. So let's look at the new improved setup window. I'm going to right or control click on the toolbar itself, and that will give me a list of all of the things that I can either hide or view from the toolbar. But what I'm going to do is choose Setup at the bottom of that list. And now I can see all of those individual components for the toolbar. And what I'm going to do is remove a few of them because I use the quantize control an awful lot, and I very rarely use the transport buttons. So I'm going to click on the transport buttons here and remove them. That will place them over into the hidden items category, and then come back to my visible items and choose some of the other things I want to get rid of. For example, I very rarely use the automation mode when I'm recording, but I would use it in mixing. So for recording, I'm going to remove the automation mode. Now I'm starting to see some of the controls that I use a lot more during the recording process. You can see that all of the quantize controls are now visible at that top bar. But there's one thing that I can now add to the toolbar that I couldn't add before, and I would really like to see that. But to get it in that toolbar, I'm also going to remove the project root key. So I'm going to click remove. That gives me a little bit more room in that toolbar. And now you'll notice that in the hidden items at the bottom, there's the performance meter. Now the performance meter is still an individual window, but I kind of like to be able to see it at all times, except that when it's in an individual window, it's going to be covering up part of my Cubase program. So I'm going to click on the performance meter here in the setup window. I'm going to add that to my visible items. So now that I have that configuration set up, I could save a preset. As I mentioned, this might be my recording setup. So I'm going to click the store button, and I'm just going to call this recording 1280 for a smaller resolution, or to remind me that I'm in a smaller resolution, and then click on OK. And then you could store or call up any of your own presets right here. You could call them up here or remove them by hitting the delete button. Or if you wanted to just get back to the default state of Cubase 7.5, you can hit the reset all button, and it will factory default all of those tools in the toolbar to their original positions. But I'm going to use my recording 1280 setup. And now when I click on OK, I have all of the controls that I would use most often for recording, including the performance meter. Again, I could see the performance window in a couple of other locations. So if I go to the device menu and choose VST Performance or type F12 on my computer keyboard, then I'll see this VST Performance window. And I can also monitor VST Performance down here in the transport window. I do like to see that performance meter at all times in my toolbar, because it's a little bit bigger than the one that's in the transport panel, and it also doesn't occupy a lot of space on my screen like the VST Performance window itself does, especially at a lower resolution. And then similarly, if I wanted to change the setup of the transport panel, I could right or control click on the transport panel and choose the things that I want to see or hide, or go to the setup, and this will look very, very similar to the toolbar setup window, where you can add and remove individual things to the transport panel and save and delete your own presets or reset them all to the factory defaults. So those are the new setup windows. It makes it easier to customize the view of Cubase 7.5. And next I'm going to show you the new features of the inspector tabs.